Hi, and welcome to Bible Study with Friends. I'm here with my friend Stan Ford, and we are continuing our Bible study in the book of Mark. Today we're going to be looking at the first day of the last week of Christ's life. Last week we talked about Palm Sunday with the, coming into town, and we're going to look at a verse that ended that Palm Sunday. And today we're going to talk about Passion Monday and the Jewish leadership. What happened on the Monday after Palm Sunday? And we're going to see that today. And he's going to cover two episodes, and he's going to do it. One is metaphoric and one is physical, dealing with the Jewish leadership. And we'll get back to that when we come back. Hi, and welcome back to Bible Study with Friends, where our goal is to show and grow a passion for studying God's Word. I'm here with my friend Stan Ford. Stan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man.
We're having a great week, and we're going to have a great time in the Word together in Mark, and we are inviting you to join us on YouTube. Hope you like this. If you do, hit the like button and hit the subscribe. We appreciate that, and the more subscribers we get, the more YouTube is likely to offer this video to other viewers and recommend us. And so we hope you subscribe. Today we're going to start in chapter 11, and we're actually going to start at verse 11. But before we do that, Stan, I want to back up one verse to verse 10, which is the end of Sunday, Palm Sunday. And let's go to that and just take a quick look. Now, we looked at verse 11 at the end of the parade, at the end of this huge parade of coming in where they're going, Hosanna in the highest, this is great. You've been sent by the Lord, and there's this big parade, and he comes in on the donkey. And it says in verse 11 that at the end of the day, Jesus entered Jerusalem and came into the temple. So he comes in with the parade and he goes into the temple and he just looks around. He looks around at everything. And then he leaves for Bethany with the 12. He takes the disciples and he goes to Bethany since it was already late. And we talked about that. So that is Sunday evening before they close the gates for the day. Jesus takes the 12 and he goes to Bethany, and Bethany is kind of his home away from home. Up in Galilee, he's been up in Capernaum and around the Sea of Galilee. And then he comes down, but whenever he's in Jerusalem, he goes to Bethany because that's where Lazarus and Mary and Martha live. So anyway, Bethany is a significant town, and Jesus goes there to spend Sunday night and to kind of rest. And then we pick up on verse 12. On the next day, when they had left Bethany, this is a tough question, Stan, but after Sunday, what is the next day?
Monday.
So this is the Monday before Christ's death on the cross. So this is Passion Week. This is the last 7 days of Christ's life on earth, leading up to the Passion of the Cross and the resurrection at the end of the week. And the next Sunday is Easter Sunday, is Resurrection Sunday. So on Monday, the next day, when they had left Bethany, he became hungry. I guarantee you that Martha fed him something. Okay? Remember, Martha is a busy woman serving. But it's interesting, so this has some symbolism of he became hungry, symbolizing people in the world that are spiritually hungry.
Okay.
So this is a metaphor for spiritual hunger. And so seeing at a distance, verse 13, seeing at a distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to see if perhaps he would find anything on it. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs.
Yeah.
What time of year is this, Stan? Why is Jesus in Jerusalem right now? What's going to happen in Jerusalem?
Well, he's going to be crucified, going to be tried and crucified.
But there's a big Jewish festival that's going to happen in Jerusalem. What is it?
Passover.
Passover, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why people are coming into Jerusalem like crazy from all over Israel, because it's Passover time. Now, Passover happens in April every year. In fact, we just had Passover just a little while ago in 2021. So it is March or early April, I should say, okay? Now, the time when figs normally bloom and blossom is in May or June. All right?
Okay.
It's summertime, basically. So when it says it was not the season for figs, it's early, okay?
Yeah.
And Jesus is going to this tree, and this is kind of a strange thing if we don't think about it. It says he said to it, all right, there's no figs.
Yeah.
And he said to it, the it being the fig tree. Right?
Yeah.
And he says to it, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his apostles were listening. And you go, man, Jesus is being kind of unreasonable here, because it's not the season for fruit. And yet he goes to that bush and he says, because you don't have fruit, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna judge you as a bush, and no one is ever going to eat fruit from you again.
Yeah.
So, and the disciples were listening to this. Okay. Now, look over in chapter 11, verse 20.
Okay.
And read that.
It said, they were passing by in the morning. They saw the fig tree withered from the roots up.
Okay. So he basically says, you guys don't have any fruit, fig tree. And even though it's not the season, you don't have any fruit, and I'm going to judge you, and no one's ever going to eat fruit from you again, and it dies from the roots up. Now, this is a metaphor for the Jewish leadership. This is not the first time God has used the idea of judging a fig tree as a symbol of judging Israel. All right?
Okay.
Flip back to Jeremiah chapter 11, and we're going to read from verse 16 to verse 20.
Okay. The Lord called your name a green olive tree, beautiful in fruit and in fruit and form. With the noise of a great turmoil, he has kindled fire on it, and its branches are worthless. The Lord of hosts, who planted you, has pronounced evil against you because of the evil of your house of Israel and of the house of Judah, which they have done to provoke me by offering up sacrifices to Baal. Moreover, the Lord made it known to me, and I knew it. Then you showed me their deeds. But I was like a gentle lamb led to the slaughter, and I did not know that they had devised plots against me, saying, let us destroy the tree with its fruit, and let us cut him off from the land of the living, that his name be remembered no more. But, O Lord of hosts, who judges righteousness, who tries the feelings of the heart, let me see your vengeance on them, for to you have I committed my cause.
Now, it's interesting in Jeremiah, he's using that same thing of a fig tree that has been judged with fire, and it's burned up.
Yeah.
And he says the fig tree is Israel, because Israel has acted unrighteously. And one of the unrighteous acts of Israel is going to be is we're going to kill the prophet. Okay? Now,
Yeah.
this is a prophecy that when Jesus comes, when Messiah comes to Israel, Israel is going to be corrupt. And what is Israel's response to the coming Messiah going to be? They're going to try to kill him. In fact, they're going to kill him.
Yeah.
Okay? So we really see a parallel in Jeremiah 11 to Mark 11. And this picture of the fig tree. Now, when Jesus judges the fig tree because it has no fruit, how does the fig tree die?
From the roots up.
From the roots up. And the roots of Israel is the leadership.
Okay.
Okay? And Israel, the Jewish faith at this point is corrupt. And it's been corrupted by the Jewish leaders. And he's metaphorically talking about that right now. And then he's going to physically show it here in just a second. That's the second episode. Now, we're pretty familiar with the episode in the temple where Jesus clears the temple of the money changers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But very few messages are given on this first episode of the metaphor. But yet it's mentioned in Mark, and even Luke alludes to it, that Israel, by the time Jesus is alive, Israel has become a corrupt religion because the leadership has become corrupt. And remember, the whole time in Mark, many, many, many times in the book of Mark, Jesus confronts the Pharisees and Sadducees with the fact that they're hypocrites, the fact that they are not being good shepherds of the people of Israel. And the people of Israel are hungry, spiritually hungry.
Actually, yeah.
And they're coming to the leadership for fruit. Now, you said, well, wait a minute, it's not the season for fruit. And the Pharisees would say, well, it's not the right time to minister to people and to feed them spiritually. It's just not the right time. But turn over to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. This is Paul talking about Christians who are to bear fruit and in their lives. And look what he says in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2.
It says, preach the word, be in season and out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with great patience and instruction. So
when are we supposed to be ministering as Christians?
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
In season and out of season.
Out of season. Yeah.
That's a very similar thing to this. Well, there was no fruit because it was out of season. But Jesus expects when people come to you with spiritual hunger, you spiritually feed them, whether it's the right, quote, season or not. And, 2 Timothy makes it very clear. We need to be answering people's spiritual hunger in season and out of season.
In season. Yeah.
Whether it's convenient or not convenient, whatever the time of year, whatever the situation, whatever the circumstances, we need to be ready to, preach, exhort, teach, and share the gospel with people in season and out of season, which ties into this thing. So Jesus is not being unreasonable in the metaphor, in that he says people are coming to the Jewish leaders hungry, and the Jewish leadership is not producing fruit in their lives. They're all show. They got leaves, but there's no fruit.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a Christian who has a good show, but no fruit in my life.
Yeah.
Because the command is to have fruit. John 15:5, I'm the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, he it is who bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. And that fruit that we bear as Christians, we bear it in season and out of season. We're bearing fruit no matter what time of year, no matter what time of day, no matter what the circumstances are. We're ready to bear fruit because we're abiding in Christ. And the Jewish leadership was not abiding in even the Jewish law. They were corrupting even the law.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move into seeing that. Does that metaphor make sense now?
Yeah, it does.
That,
Yeah.
Jesus is not being unreasonable. He's not being nasty. He's not being peckish. You're not fruit for me, so I'm gonna do away with you. So then we come to verse 15. This is the physical example of dealing with the Jewish leadership. They came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple. Now he's already looked around, so he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And he began to drive out those who were buying and selling in the temple, and overturn the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. So he comes in, and we know from Matthew, he takes a whip, and he's turning over tables, and he's going crazy as an example in the house. Now we have to look here at a couple terms. This is written to Gentiles who really don't know a lot of details. But what the Gentile is seeing, this is a person of action who's coming into the temple, and he's driving out people from the temple. Now, with our desire to be in the Word and deeper into the Word, let's look a little bit at this. Let's look at some of the terms that are used. Number one, there is buying and selling happening in the temple, right?
Yeah.
And there is money changing happening in the table.
Yeah.
And he is not happy with either the buying and selling of goods or the money changing. Now let's talk about this. Both buying and selling and the money changing is a scam to make money. To make money off of people.
Yeah.
People
now
who are coming. Go ahead.
The money, the ones that were buying and selling, was they selling like sacrifices? People coming from all around the region,
exactly,
not bringing their sacrifice, and they charging an outrageous price for their.
Let's look at what's supposed to happen. Turn back to Deuteronomy chapter 14. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 24 and 25. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just do this. Let me just tell you what Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 24 and 25 in the law says. People need to come to the temple to give offerings. And they need to bring their first fruit. They need to bring the best of their herds. So they need to bring grain offerings. And they need to bring those to the temple. But then it says, in those verses, it says, now, if they live too far away, and it's hard for them to carry the best bull, for example, to offer, they can sell their bull and bring money to the temple, and in the temple, they can buy the offering and then offer it. Now, that was to accommodate and make it easier for people to come with their offerings and their tithes. But what had happened at this point is, and I want to look at this buying and selling, and I want to look at the money changers. There was what they had set up what's called the temple money. And temple money was money that they manufactured in the temple. And they set the value. And they said, well, this let's say this temple dollar is a value that costs 3 regular dollars. So for every 3 regular dollars that you brought, you would get 1 temple dollar. Now the temple money was made up. It was their money. It wasn't really backed by the U.S. government or anything like that. It was just, they just decided. And they were setting the rates for exchanging the money. So if you came down to buy a sacrifice to offer, which you needed to do, and you came with money, which was Deuteronomy told you to do that.
Yeah.
And you came with money. Let's say you traveled down from Galilee. It's 100 miles, and you're not going to drag a bull or sheep or doves with you. You're going to have money, and you're going to come down, and then you want to buy a good to offer.
Yeah.
Well, they said you can't use money. You can't use regular money to buy an offering. You have to use temple money. So you have to take your money from Galilee, and you have to convert it into temple money, and then buy the offering with the temple money. Can you see the scam there?
Yeah. There's a scam on both parts there.
So you
exchanging the money.
Yeah, and selling. Now, what would happen is, if you actually brought an animal, they would have to inspect the animal because it had to be perfect. It had to be flawless, like the flawless lamb that was going to be offered in the temple had to be without blemish. So the Jewish leadership would inspect this and say, "Oh, this is. I mean, it's a nice lamb, but it's not flawless. It's just not up to temple standards. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll buy it for $5, and then we'll sell you an inspected grade A lamb for $10. And then what they would do is they would take that lamb that they bought on the cheap, and they would take it around and put it in the pen of the flawless lambs to sell. So they were literally cheating the people who brought goods to offer and say, "Oh, it's just not good enough. You're going to have to exchange that, and we'll pay you in temple money, and then you exchange it for buying the good stuff, and you can offer the good stuff. And if you come with money, then you got to exchange that." You see where it was a scam.
Yeah.
That people coming with the desire to give a good offering to the Lord were being scammed for the sake of profit. And so Jesus was upset with the buying and selling because it was a scam to make a profit. And he was upset with the money changing because it was a scam to make a profit. They weren't there to meet the needs of people coming into town with money and wanting to buy a sacrifice, or people bringing their sacrifice and wanting to offer it in the temple. They weren't functioning that way. This was, they're showing the leaves, but there's no fruit.
Yeah.
And Jesus is upset, and he goes on, and he says he would not permit anyone to carry merchandise through the temple. So they're bringing in the good stuff so you can offer, and they're taking away the old stuff. And he said, no, none of this buying and selling stuff. This is not proper, especially with the motivation of the Jewish leadership. And we're going to see their reaction in a second. But he says, and he began to teach them. So he's standing there, and he has flipped over tables, and he begins to teach with fervor. He began to teach and say to them, "Is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations?" Now, if I'm a Gentile and I'm reading this, that's interesting, because that means the temple in Israel is supposed to be praying for me. And I'm supposed to be able to go there and pray. Because it was a house of prayer for all the nations. And that's a quote from Jeremiah again, Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 11. Before the curse of the fig tree, there's supposed to be a house of prayer for all the nations to come. And if the nations came hungry for spiritual insight and spiritual growth and spiritual fruit to be given them, if they were hungry, this setup was not meeting their needs and was not producing fruit in their lives. And he says, but it's supposed to be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. So he makes it clear they are cheating people. They are robbing people
Yeah.
by this buying and selling and exchanging the money. And what's their reaction? The chief priests and scribes heard this and began seeking how to destroy him, for they were afraid of him, for the whole crowd was astonished at his teaching. The crowd is listening, and he's saying, you guys in this temple are not feeding people who are spiritually hungry. And just like in Jeremiah chapter 11, Israel's response was, we're going to kill the prophet.
Yeah.
And he's going to be like a lamb to the slaughter. And here Jesus is coming, and he is starting this process. This is the first week that's going to end up with him being the lamb led to the slaughter. And here we see, this is not the first time, but here we see they really launch into an active plan. And it's going to take less than a week to have this active plan to kill Jesus come to fruition.
Yeah, they were upset because he did away with their scam of making more money.
And if the people would have really listened to what Jesus was saying, they would have said, well, wait a minute, these guys are cheating us. Jesus calls them a den of robbers. They're robbing us. And so they're a little bit afraid of the crowd is going to get his message and take some action against the leadership. So their reaction was, it was not, oh boy, we've been wrong. We need to correct this. It's just not been right that we've been trying to make money off of people this way. Instead, they said, no. We're going to kill the messenger.
Yeah.
And then verse 19, when evening came, they would go out of the city. They went back to Bethany. So we have evening of Monday night, right?
Right.
So we see these two metaphors happening on Passion Week Monday and the Jewish leaders. That on Monday, Jesus is giving a metaphor for the Jewish leadership, and he is going to judge the Jewish leadership from the roots up, and it's going to be a dead religion. And he's going to bring the church. The church is going to provide fruit in season and out of season. Okay?
Yeah.
And then he goes through this physical example of how they had made the temple of God, instead of a house of prayer, it had become commercial. And that would be like a church that says, we're going to figure out how to make the service really make money. And we're going to, one of our intent is to separate these people from their money. And that's just, God is not pleased. God is not pleased.
Yeah. Because
instead of meeting a spiritual hunger, like the fig tree, and saying, here's the fruit for you, they are just devising ways of saying, we can make some money here. And that's taking an attitude as a den of robbers. And so we see Monday finishes. Now we're going to start next week with Passion Tuesday. And we're going to see what happens on Tuesday. Now, every day that Jesus is teaching is leading more and more and more and more to the confrontation that's going to be the trial and death of Christ. And then Sunday, the resurrection. So we'll see that as we go. We're gonna march through the rest of the book of Mark. Is this last week, and we're going to see every day in the last week, in the Passion Week of Christ. And we'll see that when we come back next week. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was a blessing, this idea of religion is not meant to be a way of people, leaders, making money off of people. Christianity is supposed to be meeting people's hunger. And if you're hungry for the faith, you need to come to a good church that preaches the gospel of Christ in season and out of season, so you get some fruit in your life, and it'll be a blessing, and God will be pleased, and God will be pleased much more than he's pleased at this point as an example with the leadership of Israel, who's just out to turn a buck. I hope you guys enjoyed this Bible study. Hope it was a blessing to you. Hope you subscribe and hit the like button. That helps us with the algorithm for YouTube. And we're going to come back next week. And until then, God bless you.